In this video, we're going to show you how to keep a lab notebook. There are different ways to keep a lab notebook. However, all lab notebooks should have these four important parts. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, quick notes. Number 3, procedure. Number 4, calculations and conclusion. We are going to show you examples of a BYU-I student's lab notebook. As you can see here, the first part is the introduction. In here, the student explained what the lab was about and the chemical principles behind it. Writing this out will help you understand why you are doing what you're doing. The quick notes section is very important because here you can make notes to yourself to be successful performing the lab. In this case, the student wrote some cautions such as the mixture has a low boiling point and thus has to be careful when boiling it, or being careful not to inhale the substance. The student also used this section to record the actual mass or volume of the chemicals in glass were used. These actual numbers will help you do your calculations at the end of the lab. The procedure section. This section has to be very detailed. Think, what if I have to come back and redo the experiment? Can I do it with nothing but my lab notebook? Well, this is the goal. In this example, I could come back and do a column chromatography lab only with the notes the student made here. For example, I know I will need a special pipette. Also, I know that the cis isomer will be the last to exit the column, and in order to help the cis isomer to leave the column, we need to increase the polarity of the solvent. The student even drew a mechanism of how the trans azobenzene becomes the cis azobenzene. The calculations and conclusions section. Calculations such as percent yield or finding the RF value of a TLC can be done in this section. Also, you can write the conclusions of your lab experiment. For example, the student, in this case, wrote which isomer came out first of the column and why.
Let's take another example. The introduction has scheme that's used in the lab to remind what we're going to make in this lab. The quick notes in this lab are mostly measurement and apparatus. It is good to write all the notes right next to the related procedures. For example, the masses of the chemicals used in this lab are recorded in the same line as the step when measuring the chemicals. This makes the lab notebook more clear. The procedures are normally written as you prepare for the lab. As you do so, your understanding of what you do will increase and you are less likely to make a mistake or get confused in the lab. There are 3 important things you should know as you write down the procedures. First, you should not copy the whole lab instruction to your lab notebook. Sometimes, lab instructions use difficult words or phrases and hard to understand quickly, so you should use your own words to write out the procedure to understand clearly. Also, use some symbols in the notebook as written here. This makes the lab notebook more concise and easy to read. Finally, in this page it's not used, but it's a good idea to use several colors to highlight some important steps or ideas of the lab. In this example, the student underlines the essential idea to know in the procedures. In the conclusion part, the student put the chart showing all the chemicals' molar mass or moles that would be needed for the percent yield calculation. Also, she wrote the mechanism because there was a question asking to write the mechanism in the lab instruction. The conclusion part is a good place to answer those questions in the lab instruction. This is how you can make your lab notebook.